The only thing he wants to do is kill the shark. He does things like destroy the radio on purpose, and you could argue that his erratic behavior becomes worse, and his obsession with killing the shark becomes worse throughout the film, where he blows out the engine of the orca. Yeah. Whether you could say he did it on purpose or just out of erratic behavior, it's up.
Welcome to Raiders of the Lost Podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
We're your hosts, James
and Anthony.
Today, we'll be discussing Jaws, the 1975 classic from Steven Spielberg.
All right, let's get into Jaws, which is one of my personal favorite movies. It's actually funny. Sometimes when I tell this to people, I'll say Jaws is one of my favorite movies. When they'll ask, like, what are like your top movies? And I'll throw Jaws in there. And it often gets pretty funny reactions from people. They might not understand that it's more than just like a shark movie. Maybe they've seen it maybe once or twice when they were kids. And but for me, Jaws, it really is one of my favorites. It's one of my most watched movies of all time. And it's really because of Steven Spielberg's directing and the way he used the camera, the way he blocked his scenes, the cinematography, and the John Williams score. The story is excellent. The characters are amazing. There's a lot of reasons why this is one of my favorite movies, and I've seen it many, many times. It could be my most watched movie. I saw it earlier this year, and you were like, let's do Jaws. I was like, yeah, I'll watch Jaws again, no problem. So I can watch it over and over again and never get tired of it.
Yeah, today's July 4th, so we figured, what's a good July 4th episode? I was like, let's do Jaws, man. It's a great July 4th movie.
Yeah.
And so the synopsis of Jaws is when a killer shark unleashes chaos on a beach community off Long Island, it's up to a local sheriff, a marine biologist, and an old seafarer to hunt the beast down. Directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Peter Benchley, who wrote the original novel, as well as screenplay was fixed up and finished by Carl Gottlieb. IMDb, this is an 8.1. It's currently number 206 on user rating list. Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 98%. Critic score, 90% audience score. It won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Original Score for John Williams, J-Dubs for the win, Best Sound, and Best Editing. This movie was also rated PG when it came out.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. And Jaws was the biggest hit Hollywood had ever seen. It was the first movie released in more than 400 theaters in the United States and the first movie to gross over $100 million at the box office. It was the highest grossing movie of all time until Star Wars was released 2 years later in 1977.
So Jaws, it made $472 million in its box office run. And if you adjust that for inflation for the American dollar today, that's $1.1 billion.
And the budget was $7 million.
That's insane. And if you inflate the budget, then the budget was probably like $16 million. So it's one of the most profitable movies of all time. And the reason why it became such a big hit was it actually had a huge marketing campaign from the studio. They actually put a lot of money into it. It was one of the biggest ever marketing campaigns for a movie, and also releasing it in the summertime. So like you said, it was the first movie to be released in over 400 theaters at the same time. That had never been done before. But also, movies being released in the summertime, it wasn't a money draw for studios back then. They often saved their best movies for the fall and the winter. And Jaws' release date was actually supposed to be at Christmas originally, but they went so behind schedule, they pushed it to summer. And summer back then was a time when movie studios put their worst movies to play, because they didn't think that...
It was like February.
Yeah, it was like where they sent their movies to die that they knew wouldn't make any money. Summertime was never a big box office hit for the season. But Jaws changed that. And the reason what Jaws really tapped into was reaching an audience of both kids and adults of all ages to see this movie. And then studios realized kids are out of school. We can really hit summer big time. And as more theaters began being built, back then there weren't that many, but now there are like 5,000 theaters at least in America. And so now you can get a lot of butts and seats in the summertime because you have kids out of school. And workers like maybe teachers who have the summer off. So there's more access to going to the theater during the entire day rather than during the weekday. On a normal season, you can go to the theater after 5 p.m. when you get out of work or the kids are out of school. So it really tapped into reaching as wide an audience as possible in the summertime.
Plus, it was this new kind of monster movie, this new horror movie blend genre with sharks, this real threat in the ocean, which we all know Jaws in the movie. The movie depicts them as a lot more violent than they really are. And there was unfortunately a boom of shark hunting for sport after this movies. And in the United States, deaths occur up to 30 more times from lightning strikes per year than from shark attacks per year. Between 1986 and 2000, in the Northwest Atlantic Ocean, hammerhead shark populations declined 89%, great white sharks declined 79%, and tiger sharks declined 65%. Humans kill around 100 million sharks per year. Sharks, on the other hand, attack only about 19 people a year, typically mistaking that person for a seal or they are provoked, and kill less than one person a year on average. So a lot of misconceptions from this movie. Doesn't make it any less of a brilliant movie and great horror monster movie because it is a great ride.
I suppose that there's that fear. I mean, you always have like that. Well, for me, if I go deep in the ocean, there's that fear of like what's under me because you can't see what's under the water. And that can be a little scary.
Yeah.
And especially when you go out deep, you're like, what if there could be anything swimming under my feet if there's like 40 feet below me of just water? So I think that even though sharks attack so few people around the world, there is just like that stigma of like when you're swimming in the water, anything could be down there.
It's things like when Brody is questioning Hooper about sharks. He's like, is it true that most shark attacks occur in 3 feet of water? He's like, yeah. It's like, that's terrifying. Oh my God. But I mean, Peter Benchley's book, Jaws, it got original ideas and was interpreted based on incidents that actually happened in New York to this fisherman named Frank Mundus, who caught a 4,500-pound shark off the coast of Montauk in 1964. So the idea was based off like finding these real massive,
Huge
enormous,
sharks.
huge sharks. And so I think the attacks were obviously sensationalized to make a great horror movie.
And it was a best-selling novel the previous year, so there was a lot of buzz for the film. I'm sure it would have performed very well even if it came out in the wintertime, but I think that a lot of people were just very excited. This is a time when, a book it was common for a best-selling book to be known around the country. Like The Exorcist was the best-selling novel of its time. I think that has not really happened anymore since maybe Harry Potter, of a best-selling novel being Da Vinci Code. I would say is the last time a book was like
50 Shades of Grey, kid.
50 Shades of Grey. Thank you. It's pretty rare nowadays. I can't think of any.
You could say the Last Temptation of Christ movies are based off the book.
No, I'm talking about novels becoming.
I'm kidding.
The novel itself becoming a widespread sensation. I doubt that will ever really happen again. I mean, because
where the crawdads sing.
Yeah, but it's not on the same level as
as Jaws? How dare you?
It's not on the same level as Jaws.
It'll probably make like 70 mil at the box office.
Yeah, but I'm talking like everyone read something.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And everyone read Jaws. Everyone read The Exorcist. Everyone read Da Vinci Code. Everyone read Harry Potter. So I'm curious to see if books will ever be that popular again in terms of a huge number of people reading it and it being like talked about in popular culture.
Yeah, and this movie, it's kind of like Gladiator when we talk about how it should not have turned into a masterpiece, and the screenplay was being written while filming was going on, and they were literally just night before, what are we going to shoot tomorrow? And that's basically what happened with Jaws. I don't think people maybe know that because the book was adapted into the screenplay by Peter Benchley, who wrote the novel. He also has a cameo in the movie. He plays the news reporter on Amity Beach, giving the news report about like, so that's the guy.
That's a funny news report.
So he came up with the original draft, but like Spielberg and the filmmakers are like, we can't really use this because there's subplots in the early draft where Hooper has an affair with Chief Brody's wife, which was taken from the book, and all sorts of other things where Mayor Vaughn was under pressure from the mafia, and so it was a bit much. And so basically, since the script was kind of a mess, filming and planning of Jaws was very difficult. Gottlieb, who came in and Spielberg came to get in to rewrite the script, was basically writing on location during principal photography and even only completing specific pages the night before they were planned to shoot. So Gottlieb would eat dinner with Spielberg the night before filming. His crew and cast needed for a scene in the group would brainstorm ideas for the story and dialogue for what's going to take place. So basically, this was kind of like Gladiator. The actors had a lot of improvisation, like coming up with scene dialogue, and that really just turned it into a really organic process. I think that's so rare to capture. It's kind of like the shooting star that they captured in the movie. Same thing with Gladiator, where like somehow it worked and just they pulled off this brilliant natural story. But before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost podcast, besides using our coupon codes, is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost podcast, where you get awesome perks like personalized videos, Patreon shoutouts on the show, weekly bonus episodes that every single patron has access to, as well as $10, $25, and $100 tier patrons have access to our Discord, where we interact with you all day, every day, as well as have our watch parties on there. $25 and $100 tier patrons also get their own custom episode that you choose, and we do an episode for you, whatever you want. We also launched our podcast Masterclass online course, so for anyone who wants to start a podcast or improve their current podcast, our 22 chapter, 46 video lesson course will give you all the secrets behind the scenes of our show. The link is podcastmasterclass.teachable.com, or it's just right there on our homepage of our website, raidersoftheLostPodcast.com. Thanks so much for tuning in around the world. Leave those 5-star reviews, hit the notification bells. Now let's get back into Jaws, which the movie should not have been a success because of not even just the script, but all of the production difficulties.
But back to the script, when you're writing as you're going, what happened with Gladiator and with this is they basically shoot in chronological order, which is extremely rare for a movie. Movies shoot based upon location and availability for the schedules of actors. So if like there's an actor who's only available for maybe a month, they'll try and bunch in all of their scenes for that month of shooting or even a couple of weeks. And also based on locations, if there's like 3 scenes of a certain location in a movie, but in the movie they're spread out across the film, they will shoot those scenes maybe in the same day. And oftentimes, like for example, you could shoot the last scene on the first day of principal photography, and the first scene in the movie might be shot on the last day of principal photography. These are commonalities. It's very, very, very rare for a film to be made in chronological order, but Jaws is an example of that. For example, the last shot that was ever filmed for Jaws was the explosion of the shark at the end of the movie. So
and Spielberg wasn't even on set for that. He was back in Los Angeles because the schedule ran 100 days over that. He was already in post-production and editing for the film, and he just had his cast and crew film the exploding sharks scene, so he wasn't even there for it.
Yeah, and the film went so behind schedule, and it doubled the budget. The budget was $4 million, and then it ballooned to $9 million. And I mean, reasons for the scheduling, you never want a movie to go over schedule, but this went more than double the schedule because on top of the sharks breaking down, and they were breaking down mainly because of the salt water. They tested the sharks in fresh water at the lot in the studio, and the sharks worked fine. But once the salt water got into the mechanics and the engines of the props, that's what caused all the malfunctioning and wouldn't let them operate properly. So the sharks kept breaking down, and also shooting on the water. It looks like oftentimes they're just in the middle of the ocean, but on set they're really just off the coast, just barely off the coast, because you can't go too far away with a huge crew, and also you don't want. I think the seas can be quite tumultuous out there, unpredictable. So they were always pretty close to the coastline. And so not only do you have to shoot the film in a certain way to avoid the coast, so if you want to do a shot, so maybe like one boat is facing the open water, and then on the actual production, the other boat might be another angle of the shot, the beach will be in the background. So they would have to like turn the boats around in order to make it look like they're surrounded by oceans. And also, since they were so close to the coastline, in Martha's Vineyard is
where they shot this.
There were lots of sailboats, and there were lots of boats in just the shipping industry.
Civilians,
yeah,
too.
just people, like they don't own the water. So there are oftentimes boats and even planes passing around in the background, and they would have to wait for these boats to pass by. They couldn't just go up to a boat and be like, get out of here. They would have to wait for people to pass by in the background. Sometimes that would take a while, and so that ended up ballooning the schedule. Spielberg said that even though they were there for 12 hours every day on the water, they only filmed for 4 hours a day. That's the only amount of time they could actually film scenes when they were on the water, just because there was so much happening around them.
Yeah, and he attributes to the production being so difficult because of obviously his young age. He was 27 when he made this movie, which is wild, inexperience, and a little bit of hubris, thinking that it'd be easy to shoot in the ocean, no big deal on the water, and then finding out that it was incredibly difficult. And I believe that Jaws is considered the first like major Hollywood film to be shot on the water, not like in the ocean, but on top of the actual ocean.
Well, I believe so, because traditionally huge water takes inside sound stages were often used.
Or I think it's in that HBO documentary Spielberg, where it was like one of the first movies to fully be shot on the ocean, actually shot on top of the ocean. Now,
but actually, they chose Martha's Vineyard because even far off the coast, the bottom of the sea, the bottom of the ocean was still only about 13, 14 feet below the surface of the water. So even like a mile off the coast, they could just put the mechanical shark on the floor, and it's pretty close to the actual surface level. So that's why they chose Martha's Vineyard.
And we all know he named the mechanical shark Bruce after his lawyer. And Spielberg actually had a change of heart after he originally signed on to Jaws. Did you know that he didn't want to make the movie after he signed on? So he got recruited after the original director got fired because he seemed to not be passionate and kept calling the shark a whale. So the producers are like, we can't have a director who doesn't even know that it's a shark make the movie. So then Spielberg wanted to prove himself. He had just been doing some TV, and he did the TV movie Duel.
Great movie.
So he signed a contract to do Jaws. Then he got a change of heart because he didn't want to get typecast, as he said, as the truck and shark director after finding success with the TV movie Duel, which follows a psychotic truck driver chasing a man through the Mojave Desert. Spielberg got...
That's basically another monster movie.
Yeah, and so Spielberg got cold feet before shooting began and didn't want to do Jaws. He wanted to make another movie, something maybe more artistic in his opinion. Unfortunately, he had signed the contract, and Universal was like, yo, get to work, bro. You signed this deal. You were making this movie. So he actually got kind of, because of his contract, obligated legally to make Jaws.
Now he and Universal have made a buttload of money together.
A ton of movies.
So much money.
This is one of the biggest movies of all time. But he had a huge insight in the story besides, rewriting the script with his actors and got lead every night before shooting. He came up with ideas like he's the one who came up with the explosion at the end that blew up the shark with the air tank versus the original story ending was the shark succumbed to harpoon injuries from Brody and Quint.
Oh, yeah, that's not as extravagant.
But the explosion's like way more fun because he's like, I think the audience needs like a huge payoff. We need a big win, a big climax. Let's blow the guy thing up.
You celebrate when you see, whereas if it was stabbed, it would just slowly just like sink, I guess.
Yeah, but they cleverly fit in so many little pieces of foreshadow, not just for that. I mean, earlier on when Brody accidentally knocks off the air tank when they're finally on the Orca, and he's like, oh, this could blow the whole thing up. So little things of foreshadow are all over this movie.
My favorite bit of foreshadowing is when Brody's looking through one of the shark books when he's researching sharks after the first couple of attacks, and he's at his house, and he's turned through the pages of a picture book of sharks, and the production design... The production team must have made this book because he turns to one page and there's an image of a shark with a tank in its mouth. And then he turns to the next page and then there's a tower, like a thin tower with this, on top of a boat, which is where Brody ends up.
Like a crow's nest?
Yeah, exactly. So he literally foreshadowed the final scene of the movie with those two pages in the book. It blew my mind when the first time I realized that and recognized not just the tank in the shark's mouth, but also the tower on the next page.
My favorite bit of foreshadow is Quint, who has two pieces of dialogue that are great foreshadows. First, when he's introduced, when he scratches the chalkboard, he's like, the shark will swallow you whole. You all know what I do. I'll eat a man alive.
You know me.
He's foreshadowing his own death of being swallowed whole by the shark. He's also eating a snack while he's doing this dialogue. Great foreshadow.
Terrific.
And then another foreshadow, he's talking to Hooper about his tanks.
Hooper!
He's like, Hooper, I don't know what he's going to do with it besides eat it. And he does eventually eat the tank of air. So great little pieces of foreshadow that come into play way later on in the film.
Yeah, and also, I mean, what really makes this movie special for me, like I said, Spielberg and then the acting. And you can tell now that you say that it was written as they were shooting that it was kind of written from a director's point of view of how they wanted to film the scenes, because one of my favorite aspects to the film is how many long takes there are in the movie and how the blocking works in each scene, how the actors move and weave through the locations and shots are set up. And you can tell that it was written with a director's perspective in mind, and that there are some really great long takes that might fly under the radar because they're so well choreographed and so well shot that you might not even realize it's a long take happening. And the way that Spielberg does this is by using different setups within the long takes to establish basically several shots within one take. And it's really a magnificent display of his ability to choreograph scenes. All of his movies are like this. You will see they're not like Alfonso Cuarón, like 8-minute long takes, or Iñárritu, huge long takes, but these are like minute-long takes or 2-minute long takes, and they're very subtle. And like the average cut time of this movie has got to be very high because there are so many long takes. Some of my favorite,
in terms of time.
Yeah, in terms of time between each cut, if you average it out, it's going to be like maybe like up to 20 seconds, which is so super high. But some of my favorites are the opening shot of the campfire scene. It's the opening credits, and Spielberg slowly tracks across the entire party. And it's about, I would say, a minute-long shot that goes to the boy when he's drinking beer. Then when Brody takes the shuttle, the little tiny ferry across the water to go to the camp boys who are swimming, and then the mayor and the doctor and the other guy joins them. That's all just one take of it. The conversation is really fascinating, but also Spielberg moves the camera in a great way to set up the shot in different ways. Also, the dining room scene where Brody's son is copying his movements at the dining room table. It's just a very simple 2-shot of the actors with Brody's wife in the background. That's also a long take. Hooper's entrance into Brody's home is probably the longest take in the film because it starts in the dining room and then Brody enters in the background and then he walks into the scene and then they talk and Brody literally starts eating the food. They pour the wine. This is like, it's got to be 2.5 minutes without a cut, but it's very subtle. Also, Brody and Hooper warning the mayor about the shark, even though the mayor thinks that the shark was caught. They're in front of the billboard. This is a really specific one because Spielberg sets up, I think, 5 different shots in this long take to make it feel like it's being cut from shot to shot, but it's really just a one long take. And really fascinating how it ends on the billboard. Hooper and Brody on the docks when Hooper first shows up. That's also a long take talking to the guys who are like bombarding that boat. When Hooper introduces himself to Brody and he walks into the shack, that scene starts with Brody and the other officer. They have a chat, and then Hooper comes into the scene. That's also a very long take. And then Quint's monologue, scratching the chalkboard, and also his monologue of the USS Indianapolis, both very long takes. And there's more sprinkled throughout, but I just love this movie so much because Spielberg is just like, screw it, I'm gonna do a long take all the time. It's a tough thing to pull off, but I think it's one of the most special aspects to this movie.
And obviously, Spielberg gets so much credit for pulling off a masterpiece despite the difficulties of the production and shooting. But I think that Bill Butler, the cinematography, should get just as much, but he tends to not. People probably forget that he even did the cinematography for this movie. I mean, not just like fusing in great new filmmaking and camera techniques like the split focus, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's like the opening shot of Brody, you can see the ocean way in the distance in front of him is in focus, and it's just a great out of focus shot of him. And then the split focus on the beach where the image of the guy talking to Brody is in focus, as well as the ocean
In the
behind him in
background,
focus.
yeah.
So great split focus shots like that, as well as the dolly zoom of Brody on the beach is an infamous shot, probably more famous than the shot that it was started with Vertigo with Alfred Hitchcock. But Bill Butler made a beautiful looking movie. There's some brilliant cinematography in this, especially the perspective and the point of view of the shark, which you don't get a ton of in this movie. They were supposed to do a lot more of that, and obviously the shark was supposed to be a lot more prevalent in the film. However, because of Bruce the shark constantly breaking down, he doesn't show up till like an hour 45 into the movie.
Well, that's what I love.
But that's what's great.
Yeah.
It ends up working. It's an accidental, brilliant piece of suspense making.
I mean, one of the best moments of the film is the first time you actually see the real size of the shark, and it's during the pond attack when the shark takes that guy on the little red boat. And
all you see is the fins, the dorsal fin. And
yeah, well, first you see that, him sliding across the water and then going underneath, which is just like amazing shot because it's quiet. It just disappears. And you're like, oh my God. But then he does the bird's eye view of the pond, and then you see the shark as it's approaching the boat, and you just see how freaking massive this animal is in comparison to this modestly sized boat. I mean, the boat's like 8 feet long.
Hey, you guys, are you kids okay over there?
okay over there? But the shark, it just is massive. And that is one of the best shots of the movie, and it's shocking to see because we saw the shark attack the kid on the little floaty thing, and you saw some fins and stuff, but you didn't really see the size of the shark. It just looked like it was like a big animal. But when you saw that shot in the pond, you're like, this is the biggest beast I've ever seen.
And then it gets even bigger when Brody's throwing the chuck, or is it chump or chum trail?
Chum bucket.
Chum bucket. He's throwing the chum in the water. He's not even looking.
Thanks,
he looks
SpongeBob.
back, and the shark comes out of the water to grab some of the chum.
Yeah.
That's the first time we get a great look at it. And then when it swims underneath the boat, and Hooper's like, it's 20-footer, and Quinn's like, nah, 25.
When it's circling the boat, that's another. When you see it compared to this larger boat, and the shark, in some way, I think it might be longer than the boat itself, and it's just really incredible moment.
We're gonna need a bigger boat, right? You're gonna need a bigger boat. And so back to Bill Butler, the guy did a tremendous job with the cinematography. They accidentally captured 2 shooting stars in this movie. The most famous one is
Hooper.
No, it's
Brody.
Brody with the revolver. But there's another one is a wide shot of the orca boat, and there's another shooting star. So there's 2 shooting stars that they accidentally captured in this movie. But the cinematography is brilliant, and also Bill Butler He did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He did Grease. He did Jaws. He did Anaconda. And ironically, he also did Flipper, the great orca whale story. So it's something about monster movies and also ocean animal movies that he just nails.
Flipper. Is that Elijah Wood in that one? Or is he
in Flipper?
Free Willy?
No, Free Will. Oh, hold on. Oh, that's right.
I think Elijah Wood's in Free Willy.
I forgot there are 2 orca whale movies.
Yeah.
let me tell you.
Michael Madsen's the dad in it.
Yeah, I think Flipper is Elijah, and then
Flipper's Elijah.
Yeah, and then
Free Willy.
This is it's Elijah. It's
Elijah.
Flipper.
Yeah.
So yeah, Flipper is Elijah.
Oh, nice.
Sandy Ricks is his name.
Sandy Ricks. What a name.
And there's so many great things that I love about this movie. In addition to everything we've talked about, I think John Williams' score is so incredible. And because of the unplanned lack of shark on the screen, John Williams' music fills in that void, that presence, by creating so much fear and suspense without seeing anything, just hearing the music. It also at times very exciting and kind of adventurous, but also the horror, the strings. Like when the old school Universal spinning planet logo shows up, you just hear the strings. Yeah. It's amazing, and he won an Academy Award for this. I think it was his first one. He was also conducting the orchestra at the Academy Awards at the time when he won the award, which is super cool. So John Williams it created one of the greatest scores of all time with Jaws, but also it's so integral to the story, to the suspense, to the horror of the movie. It might be one of the most important film scores for a movie ever.
Yeah, you can also get hints of what he would end up doing in terms of like the more adventurous themes when during the second half of the movie. There's a lot of that more playful, complex writing that he did, and this was big for John Williams. He was up and coming. He was a jazz pianist before he was a film composer, but this really excelled his career in a big way, and this is really what defined his career in a lot of ways. And Spielberg, when he first heard the score on John Williams' piano, he thought it was he didn't think he was serious, and he was like, oh, let's actually hear the real score.
Quit joking with me, John.
Yeah. But then when you hear it with the full orchestra, I'm sure it's different from when you hear it just played by one pianist.
Just 2 notes.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really sensational. It's one of the best scores of all time because of how much it improves the movie and really sets the stage for the horror.
Plus the theme, it's so simple, but there's nothing wrong with music being simple and it being perfect and working so well. I mean, Nirvana has some of the most simple guitar chords and sequences of all time in music, but like they just boomed the genre and changed music in the 90s with Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is literally 4 chords the entire song, which most pop music's like that.
Really?
But
just 4?
It's a very simple song, a lot of simple music. Obviously, some of their songs are a little more complex, but they changed music and it just created a fever. And I think there's something about, you don't have to have the most complex music to work effectively. And I think John Williams is genius because he understands that. He also understands when not to use music, which a lot of film composers don't understand, that there are points where you don't need music or just little tiny undertones, like during Quint's speech during the Indianapolis. He doesn't really have any music. There's just like a little undertone. He's not taking away from the performance because what the characters are saying, what they're doing, the action is more important than music.
And also when Jaws attacks the boat, the final attack, and he's eating Quint, like there's no music during that sequence. It's really terrific. All you hear are the screams and the sound effects of the wood being crunched and bashing against the wall. And the sharks, like, it's just, it's terrific. All you need are the sound effects, and I think that sequence, if there was music, it wouldn't be as powerful and terrifying as if it's just like all you hear are the sound effects of what's going on in the sequence.
Yeah, exactly. So like great composers know when to use music and when not. Unless you're working for Christopher Nolan, then he's just like, I want an hour and a half of music nonstop.
Can you turn it up? Can you turn it up, please?
We stand Chris Nolan. We love the guy. This movie also has so many layers. You know, it's not just this monster horror movie, this shark movie.
It's not.
It's more than that. There's also corrupt political drama going on.
Yeah.
There's also great comedy in this movie. There's also family drama to it and great relationships, great characters. I mean, Brody, Hooper, and Quint are really what make this movie, I think. The shark is fantastic, but I think...
Good performance, Bruce.
Bruce is great. But when we finally get the 3 of them on the boat together, which doesn't happen for a long time. I mean, Quint comes in, he gives his speech at the chalkboard during the meeting. He doesn't show up for 45 minutes. You don't see him or hear his voice at all. But then when Brody, Hooper, and Quint are together on the orca, on the boat, that's when the movie really takes charge, and it's really even more interesting. The characters are so well written, 3-dimensional, great dialogue, great actions, even the mayor. I think the characters are really what make this movie so special besides the shark.
In the second half, it's two movies essentially. It becomes a very different movie when they get on the boat. It just becomes a completely different thing, and you're isolated on one structure with these three characters, and all three of them are sensational. And Dreyfuss and Richard are excellent. Brody and Hooper and Quint, they had like real animosity together. Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss, and you saw that on screen. And the way they tease each other, and you can tell there's a lot of improvisation. Dreyfuss is a naturally funny guy. He's always been hysterical, and there's a lot of his humor put into Hooper. And Brody's a great lead character. I think the characters are really so well developed, every single one of them, even the supporting cast. But it is a very funny movie. There are bits that I still crack up when I see it. It's just the behavior is really key. Spielberg understands acting behavior, not just saying your lines, but also behaving as that person, doing things in the scene, staying busy in the moment. You don't want to be an actor who just has their hands flat on their sides. Like, these actors are so experienced. There's a lot of intricacies to what each and every one of them are doing, and they each bring their own natural charisma to each role. And Robert Shaw actually famously was struggling with alcohol addiction, and oftentimes he would be drinking in between takes. And he and Richard Dreyfuss had a lot of animosity between them while they were filming. And there's a famous story about the USS Indianapolis monologue, which is one of the best monologues ever delivered by an actor. And Robert Shaw actually thinking it would be a good idea to actually be drunk while he performed the monologue, because the character was drunk in the scene, and the entire scene was unusable. All the footage was unusable because he just did a terrible job because he was so sloshed. And then he called Spielberg up and asked to do it again, and the next morning they redid the Indianapolis sequence, and he did his entire monologue in one take, and it was just that one take that was just so incredible, so powerful, and just perfectly performed. And Robert Shaw, I think, definitely should have been nominated for an Oscar for this. He's really terrific.
Yeah, the main cast is amazing. They're all so well cast, and Roy Scheider as Brody is tremendous. Brody's this outsider. It's his first summer at Amity as the sheriff. He's from New York, and you can tell he's an outsider because he doesn't really fit in anywhere. He doesn't even fit in with Quint and Hooper when they're on the boat together. He doesn't really fit in with the townspeople. They don't like him really. His opening shot is of him with of the water in focus, way in the distance. He's afraid of sharks. I mean, he's afraid of sharks, obviously, but he's terrified of the water. Even the sequence where the fake shark attack is happening, where those two kids are under the fake dorsal fin, and everyone's freaking out that there's a shark in the water. He's a hero. He wants to be a hero, but he's afraid to put his feet in the water.
Yeah.
In like 2 inches of water, he's like, oh crap, my feet are in the water. I gotta jump out. So he's terrified of the water. He's terrified to be on boats. When they take ferries, he sits in the car the whole time. So it's really ironic that this guy who turns into shark killer and hero and ends up having no problem with the waters at the end of the movie is terrified of the water. And Roy Scheider, he actually got the part of Chief Martin Brody after overhearing Spielberg talking to a friend at a Hollywood party about the scene where the shark leaps out of the water onto Quint's boat. Scheider was instantly enthralled and asked Spielberg if he could be in the film. Spielberg loved Scheider and his role from The French Connection and later offered the actor the part.
Excellent movie also, The French Connection. He had a supporting role as Gene Hackman's partner.
And then Robert Shaw is Quint, like Anthony was saying. An incredible performance, great actor, maybe the best written character in the movie, one of the most interesting characters, I think, ever in cinema. Very well fleshed out. He's so much like Captain Ahab in Herman Melville's Moby Dick. And I think that just the obsession with the shark, and his place is full of all these shark jaws, and that's the only thing he wants to do is kill the shark. He does things like destroy the radio on purpose, and you could argue that his erratic behavior becomes worse, and his obsession with killing the shark becomes worse throughout the film, where he blows out the engine of the orca. Yeah. Whether you could say he did it on purpose or just out of erratic behavior, it's up in the air. But he's just so obsessed with killing the shark, just like Moby Dick was with killing the whale.
Yeah, it's interesting how he
Captain Ahab was killing Moby Dick.
Yeah. It's interesting because Quint sabotages them multiple times, not like sabotaging, but puts them in like a perilous situation by first destroying the radio. I think he destroys the radio because he doesn't want anyone else to take the shark down besides him.
True, and maybe he doesn't want to scare the shark away.
Yeah. If
a bunch of boats start coming.
I think he's more just like, I'm getting the shark. No one else is coming in.
Yeah.
Also, that's why he never wanted to call in a bigger boat, even though Brody's like, we need a bigger boat, right? We can just call in more people to help us out. I don't think he wants anyone else to get this kill because it's like, this is the shark he's been dreaming of all his life. This is the big one. He's never encountered a beast this big. Because before this, he said the biggest thing he had caught before was 16-footer. So this shark is almost twice as big as that. So this is like the ultimate hunt for him. And I think that he doesn't want anyone else involved in it. And then when he sabotages the boat by blowing out the engine purposely, knowing he would do that, I think that was more of because the shark was beating them time and time again, and nothing he was doing was working. I think that he just wanted to outrun the shark to show that he was superior to the shark. He was like, I'm faster than you. I think because once he begins making distance between him and the shark, he's like nodding yeah, that's right, shark. I'm faster than you. So I think that there was a moment of pride for him.
Fast animal.
Yeah, I need to show the shark who's boss. And I'm faster than it, and that's why he blows out the engine.
And I think that's why his boat's called Orca, is because he's a shark hunter. He's a shark killer. That's what he does. He's not like a normal fisherman. That's why he's like, y'all know what I do. And his entire fishing house is just full of shark jaws boiled that he made, that he killed. He killed all these sharks. And
he's a murderer.
That's his obsession. And I think that's why he named his ship the Orca, is because orcas are higher up on the food chain than great white sharks, and they've been known to attack great white sharks, and they know exactly where to attack great white sharks to find the liver, and they hunt great white sharks, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
and
orcas
crazy.
are like the most terrifying animal in the sea.
Honestly, probably for like, but they're not known for attacking humans in the wild, in aquariums for sure, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But they attack great white sharks, so I think that's why his boat is called the Orca,
I think you're right.
in my opinion.
That's a great point. I think we should head on into our intermission.
Let's do it, and then we'll get back to the characters because there's still more to talk about with Quint. If you're stuck at sea for several months, the last thing you want to be without is your Lawnmower 4.0 groomer from Manscaped.com. Use our coupon code Raiders of the Lost at checkout for 20% off and free shipping on your entire order today from Manscaped.com. You don't want to look like Quint. Manscaped also just launched their Boxer Briefs 2.0, which are the most comfortable briefs I've ever worn in my entire life. They sent us a few pairs each, and they are my favorite briefs to wear. I plan out what days I wear these because they are so comfy and just make everything feel so soft and silky and smooth. Manscaped also released their Platinum 4.0 collection recently, which is their best deal yet and includes the following products: the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which again is basically a rocket ship for your grooming needs. 7,000 RPM motor, waterproof, wireless charger, has a built-in light. You can use this thing in the shower in the dark, fellas. The Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, body wash, 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, deodorant, anti-chafing ball deodorant, ball spray toner, boxers, and a shed travel bag. I don't know what you're doing with your life if you haven't been on manscaped.com to get some products, so definitely get there. Use our coupon code Raiders of the Lost at checkout. That's one word. Get 20% off and free shipping worldwide.
This episode is also sponsored by our other amazing partner, movieposters.com. Use our very special coupon code at their website, Raiders10, to get up to 10% off your order today. Movieposters.com has the best selection of all sorts of movie posters, TV posters, anime posters, whatever your poster needs are. They got you covered with their extensive library, as well as all sorts of options for framing, backlighting, whatever you need. They got you covered. Movieposters.com, they have the best selection of both Marvel, classic movies, horror films, foreign films, whatever you need, whatever you want. Movieposters.com has it. Again, head on over to movieposters.com and use our special promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today.
All right, let's do our intermission, starting with the movie quote competition. You ready, Anthony?
Let's hear it.
She got me this, okay? Because I would always leave my cereal boxes open and the cereal would get stale. And so one day I come home and she had this waiting for me because it keeps my cereal fresh. And now I have the freshest cereal.
I can't think of the movie though. I know the quote. What movie is this?
The majority of it takes place on a ocean resort.
I don't know.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, yeah. Jason Segel, yeah.
Now I have the
Fresh cereal. That's a great line. Okay, here's my quote. Do you know what they did to the native workers who stole diamonds? Don't worry, they didn't kill them. That would be like junking your Mercedes just because it had a broken spring. No, if they caught them, they had to make sure they could go on working, but they also had to make sure they could never run away. The operation was called hobbling.
I want to say Blood Diamond, but I don't think it is. It's Lost City of Z?
No.
I don't know.
Misery.
Misery.
Yeah, that's what she says
my
right before
God,
she bashes
Oh
his
my
feet.
God.
Hobbling is the operation.
Just thinking of that scene makes me squirm. All right, guess this movie release here. It's actually a TV show. What year did The Wire debut?
2004.
2002.
Oh, good one.
Close.
What year did All the President's Men come out?
I love this movie.
How much do you love it? Prove it. I see you're on your phone. What are you
No,
doing
I
on your
was
phone?
just checking the spelling of my next question.
Sure he is.
Whatever. This is the 70s. 1976.
Yes.
Got it. Let's go.
Good job.
What is the name of Idris Elba's Asgardian character in the MCU?
Heimdall.
Nice.
Yes.
Heimdall.
Heimdall.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks.
Didn't think you'd get that.
I'm not a fucking idiot. Heimdall. Okay, here's my quiz question. Richard Dreyfuss is the narrator of what famous movie?
Richard Dreyfuss, the narrator. What the hell did he narrate?
That's the question. It's the $1 million question.
I get $1 million?
No. You don't get a goddamn thing.
If I got $1 million, I'd be on Google right now. Freaking, I don't know, man.
Stand By Me.
Oh,
He's the narrator.
that's a great question.
Thanks, man. Spared no expense.
All right, time for haters of the week or unsubscribes. What do we got?
We got a bunch. It's great. We have a great list. Okay, so in our last episode, I called Catherine Kahn.
Yeah, when you said that, I'm like, who's Catherine Kahn?
So Ben Hardy wrote, "Do you think Catherine Kahn is related to Genghis Khan?" Unsubscribe.
You also Agatha Harkin. You said instead of Agana Harkness.
It's Agatha Harkness.
Harkness. You said Harkin. I'm like, Harkin. Who's he talking about? I just was like nodding. I'm like, sure, man, whatever.
Also, Samuel Little wrote, "Was really enjoying the podcast until you guys said Night Bright instead of Light Bright."
Oh, sorry.
Unsubscribed.
Light Bright.
Got us.
Because wasn't Night something with a doll that lit up at night?
I can't remember.
There's a doll. There's Night.
Bright?
There's a doll that would its face would glow.
Oh, the little worm.
I think it was
Yeah, the
Night
little
something.
worm.
I could be wrong
Walter
too.
Daniel Rano wrote, "Hey guys, months ago I started listening to almost all of your podcasts since the first one until the last one you posted on Monday, and I'm just grateful because I'm not a native English speaker, and I'm improving a lot by listening to you. I understand everything you say, and in general, I've been improving my skills. Definitely the best podcast. Keep doing an amazing job. If not, I will unsubscribe."
Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.
Glad to help with your English. And then also,
Anthony might not be the best person to get your English pronunciations from. Agatha Harkin.
Hey, those names do not count.
Catherine Kahn.
Names can be different.
Didn't someone write, isn't she related to Genghis Khan?
I just said that.
I wasn't listening to you at all.
That was the first one I
was
said.
not listening to you.
Oh my God. You acted like it was like a memory from like a week ago. It's like it just happened a minute ago.
No,
What are you,
I
high?
remember I saw it. I saw it on my own. And I laughed. I'm like, Anthony's an idiot.
Anyways, next up on our Obi-Wan episode, Batman Who Laughs wrote, "Slicing fish on a desert planet." Unsubscribed.
a lot of that show doesn't make sense.
I think he unsubscribed from the show. And then next up, you posted a clip of Billy Butcher with the meme, like the little tiny version of him.
It's a tiny body, but regular size feet and regular size head.
It's great. And then Buddy Brown, you asked who wants a boys episode, and then Buddy Brown 2 wrote, "That would be effing diabolical." Unsubscribed.
Oi.
Oi. And then In our last movie news episode, we talked about how a lot of our episodes got lost during our transfer. And then Jack Gallagher wrote, "This podcast isn't even lost. Unsubscribe." That's a good one. It was a great batch this week.
That's a clever one because of the title.
Yeah.
All right. We have a great 5-star review from Jack Friedman. Best podcast ever. I've listened to quite a few film-related podcasts, but this one is by far the best. I loved Top Gun 2, Stranger Things, The Batman, and much more, but you guys explaining it makes the movie or show 10 times better. Thanks so much, Jack. Really appreciate that.
That's really sweet. Thanks.
Very nice.
We also have a Godfather patron shout-out for today. Our patron today is Jess Crodel. Jess, you became a Godfather
On the day of my daughter's wedding. Thank you so much. Ain't doing offer you couldn't refuse.
Jess chose Firewalk with me, David Lynch's film. It's really trippy, crazy, and wild. Just what you'd expect from the filmmaker. I think it's going to make for an excellent bonus review for the Godfather patrons.
We've hardly talked about David Lynch.
Yeah, we haven't touched on him too much.
We just talk about him on Dune.
Yeah, but we love David Lynch, and that movie is wild. I can't wait to review it for you. Thank you so much for being a Godfather patron. It allows us to do the show full time, so we appreciate your support as well as the support from all of our other patrons. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it. On this day in film history, as you all know, today is July 4th. In 1776, U.S. Congress proclaims the Declaration of Independence and independence from Great Britain. Sorry, everyone.
Get out of here, Britain.
Sorry, UK fans listening. We're out of there. In 1969, Once Upon a Time in the West came out. In 1990, Die Hard 2 is released. In 2001, Scary Movie 2 is released. Take my strong hand.
That's my strong hand.
In 2018, the first Purge is released. Purge Origins.
No, that just came out recently. The first Purge.
There's an origin to
it's
the
called
first...
The First Purge.
No, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it's Purge Origins.
Yeah.
It's an origin story to the Purge.
Oh, this is the one you just said?
So it's the first Purge came out in 2018.
Oh, I thought you meant like the first one. No,
it's called the first
No.
Purge.
I understand that, but
No, I know you.
Shut up.
I know.
Just
Spider, just get me the goddamn drink. I said, did you want a drink?
I thought you said
Spider. No, I thought you said Spider. Spider. I thought you said
Dance, Spider.
Dance, Spider.
Let's see him dance.
I'm a good shot. Sorry. I'm gonna say, happy birthday to the late Gloria Stewart, who plays in Titanic, the old woman with the jewel.
Rose.
I was like, what's her name?
The old woman.
I was like, Jade.
The old woman with the jewel. What the fuck?
And then, that's a pretty good description.
It's like one of the most famous movie characters ever. Rose.
I forgot her name. Chang Dong-lee, who is a South Korean director, and his film Burning in 2018 was the first South Korean film to make the shortlist for Oscars for Best at the time foreign language film, which is Best International Film at the time. It did not get the full nomination, but it was on the 9 shortlist. But I think they only choose 5.
Yeah, 5.
And then also Post Malone, who actually has a film career. He's in Wrath of Man.
He's also in the last 2 Mark Wahlberg movies.
That's right.
Yeah.
My streaming recommendation is Burning. Chang Dong-lee's film is on Amazon Prime. Highly recommend it. It stars Steven Yeun.
I have Black Swan. I can't clear my throat. Jesus Christ.
Sorry. It's funny.
Oh my God.
Because it sounds like a Tommy gun.
Well, how do you clear your throat? That's not how you do it.
Ahem.
Oh, yeah, you sound so cool.
Excuse me. It's like, sorry.
My recommendation is Black Swan. Just got added on Amazon Prime. It's one of my favorite movies of the last 20 years. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And if you have seen it, why not watch it again?
Why not? Great pick.
Thanks.
All right, let's head into Jaws. Get back into it. You want to stay on Quint?
I would love to stay
because
on Quint.
there's still so much that's fascinating about Quint.
So much.
And so I think his obsession with sharks and killing sharks is the most interesting part of the character, which obviously we do not endorse the killing of sharks. It's terrible. But the character
we need a Quint origins.
But the character, we need an Indianapolis story. The character of Quint hates sharks so much. He's a shark hunter. We know this. Obviously, we find out from his backstory about the USS Indianapolis story, where a Japanese torpedo hit the ship that he was on as they were delivering the bomb, and all the men of the ship were in the ocean, and like 30% of them made it up. But he tells the story of the sharks taking them one at a time, and sometimes they come, sometimes you bash them, sometimes they leave. So you understand why this guy hates sharks so much that all he wants to do with his entire life is kill sharks, and then ironically he gets eaten by one.
Yeah, it seems to be like he wants to eliminate every shark he can from the water, and that's like his purpose in life after the Indianapolis attack. And it's a really great character, and you understand why he's drunk. You understand why he has such bad issues. But when Quint shows up for the first time in that board meeting with the town officials and the reporters and journalists, and then Quint just shows up, he scratches the chalkboard. You're like, this is a fisherman. Like, he feels like he's from like the 17th century.
He's a hunter, man.
Yeah, but he feels like he's from 200 years ago, and I really he seems like out of place, but he's just like the old school fisherman who time has kind of frozen in the kind of person he is.
Seafarer.
Yeah, he feels like a whaler from the 1800s.
Maybe he doesn't seem intelligent to people off at the beginning, but he actually is. He's a smart guy, and his methods are old school and traditional. But like,
don't you tell me about my business?
But I think his intelligence is shown when everyone thinks they caught the shark, the first shark that gets killed by those guys. It's a what? A what? And it just ends up just being a tiger shark. And he's just like drives by, he sails by on his boat just
Giggling,
laughing at everybody. He's like, what a bunch of idiots. They think they caught the shark because he knows that shark couldn't do that to a human being, really.
Yeah. And he and Hooper contrast so well with one another because and he's also so intelligent. He knows Hooper right away, like what kind of person he is. He's like, you got city hands. You've been counting money all your life.
Well-educated, independently wealthy.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he can tell immediately that even though Hooper is knowledgeable about the sea, he hasn't lived his life on the sea, and he hasn't like done the hard work necessary to really become like an experienced fisherman. And he sees that immediately from Hooper, and that's why he doesn't like him.
Well, maybe I think he's a little wrong though, and then they end up forming some sort of a friendship later on because they're a lot more similar than they think at first, because Hooper's new school, he has experience on the ocean. Quint is old school. His methods are very traditional. They both have extensive experience in the ocean. They both have experience with sharks, and I think this comes out obviously before the Indianapolis speech when they're going over all their scars and injuries, and they both have injuries from oceans and from sharks. And I think the biggest difference, and even there's a couple scenes where they're dressed in the same colors, the same kind of outfits, and they're both fixing the engine together, not even looking up. They're just, their hands are coming out from the engine. Yeah. So they're actually a lot more similar than they think. But I think the biggest difference between them, it's not money, it's not education, it's not the year they were born, but it's that Quint hates sharks and Hooper loves them.
That's a great point. And also, Hooper can be quite arrogant because he thought that initial line, he thought that it was like, it's not a shark, he's not the shark, and he keeps telling Quint that you don't have the shark that you think you have, and it could be anything, it could be just garbage. And then the Quint pulls out the chewed through line. He's like, don't you tell me about my business. So Hooper, being a little upper class, actually quite upper class, I think he still has a bit of arrogance and a bit of a know-it-all attitude, whereas Quint has put in the work to really know when he's right and isn't trying to tell people that he's right all the time. So Hooper has a bit of that. And also Hooper, the behavior of the character is really well defined. Hooper, for example, you can tell that he comes from upper class, not just because it's mentioned a couple of times, but when he goes to Brody's house after that first shark is killed and he's going there to convince him to cut open the shark's belly to see what's really inside. What does he do when he shows up? He brings wine, but he doesn't just bring a bottle of wine. He brings 2 bottles of wine. He brings a red and a white because he's not sure what you were serving. That's something only someone who grew up like in high society in a world where it's important to have a certain pairing of wine with a certain pairing of food to understand that that's why he would bring both bottles of wine. A normal person, they would just bring like, oh, I'll just bring a red wine.
A Quint would just bring a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. But just the fact that Hooper brought 2 options for wine shows that he is from a different class from everyone else in the movie.
And also juxtaposition of their equipment, whereas, like we said, Quint has like the harpoon gun, whereas Hooper has tranquilizer darts and stuff like that. But also they're both the Orca, even though it's like the biggest boat out of all the sailors and fishermen there. It's pretty sizable compared to what everyone else was going out on to catch the shark. It's huge, but it's beaten up. It's old. It's rusty. Whereas Hooper has this beautiful like yacht.
Yeah.
And they both use them for the same thing with finding sharks. Whereas again, Hooper is using his ship to find sharks and study them and learn from them and experience them. Whereas Quint goes out to kill sharks.
And also, they both have a famous story from their past that got them into the shark business. And you can tell this is a reason why maybe Hooper loves sharks as opposed to Quint hating them. Hooper's, as a kid, his little sailing boat got attacked by a shark. He saw the shark basically eat his boat and take it to the bottom of the ocean. And as a kid, that made him fall in love with sharks, and he was so fascinated by it. He's like, I want to learn everything I can about this creature. It's kind of an innocent thing, just like a boat getting destroyed, as opposed to Quint, who watched hundreds of his friends and fellow sailors get eaten alive by sharks. A couple of his close friends were just torn to bits by sharks, and also just the fear of, am I going to be eaten next? So that horrific experience is so different from Hooper's past experience with sharks, and that also feeds into the difference between their appreciation and then hate for sharks.
I completely agree. But there are also other great characters. I mean, even the son's an interesting character. There's some sweet moments between it, Brody and his son that they just captured in the moment, like when he's mimicking his father, when his father's just like doesn't know what to do. He's drinking himself at dinner. But I also have a theory that I think the opening sequence where his son cuts his hand on the bike swing it is, and then maybe that's why the shark goes for him and his friends when they're over on the pond area of the ocean versus the shark going after all the people that are swimming, maybe because his son was swimming in the water and his hand still had maybe a not fully healed blood wound. That's why I went over there.
I think it's a really cool theory.
I think that's an interesting theory that I came up with. Also, the mother's a great character as well. She's always very supportive and taking care of them. And then I love when she's like, let him play on the sailboat. Like, what's wrong with you, Brody? And then she looks at the shark book and it's eating the ship. And she's like, get off the boat.
Listen to your father. Didn't you listen to your father?
Get out of the water.
And she seems to be, she has an accent, a thicker accent from Brody. She seems like she could be from the Massachusetts area.
It's possible.
Yeah, I think because she has the Boston accent a little bit more than he does.
But
he has the New York accent.
The accent's, it's New York. It's Long Island.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's pretty similar.
So it's not, it's Amity is a made-up place.
Yeah.
They just filmed it at Martha's Vineyard. But also, the mayor's a really interesting character because, like I said, there's some corrupt political drama going on in this film as well, where the mayor, he wants the town to make money. He's a politician. So in his eyes, a successful town is a happy town. That's what will get me reelected for the next term. We need summer dollars. We're a summer town. It's the July 4th weekend. Him and the businessmen of the town, they convinced Brody at first that the girl's death was caused by boat propellers, and they even convinced the coroner to change the autopsy results from it being a shark attack or animal attack to being a propeller attack. And because it's Brody's first summer, his first year as the sheriff of Amity, he just wants everyone to be happy. He's trying to curry favor with the mayor and with all the business people, and he gets coerced into hiding the fact that it was a shark attack. It's not until, Hooper comes and does his own autopsy of the body, and he freaks out after seeing what he sees because he's like,
"This was no propeller?
Have you notified the Coast Guard about this? Nothing. This is a huge shark." But the mayor still is very corrupt up until the point of the big attack of the guy who gets killed in the pond. And he's like, even my kids were on that beach too. So it takes him up until that point to finally succumb to Brody closing down the beaches because all he cares about is making money and making money for the town because he's a politician, and a lot of politicians are very corrupt.
And there's also a great symbolism with the mayor during that ferry scene when he and the others approach Brody for the first time about him closing down the beaches. The way he's dressed, he's got this gray suit on with a red tie, and the men circle him, and it feels like the symbolism is definitely relating to sharks circling their prey. He's dressed like a shark. The red tie could symbolize like bloodthirsty nature that the mayor has. So I think there's some really great symbolism in that sequence to illustrate the mayor's intentions of being an antagonist.
Never thought about that. This is pretty interesting.
Yeah, so next time look at that clip, and he has the color of his suit. It's like the same color as the skin of a great white shark.
Yeah, and he doesn't even care that there have been deaths caused by, definitely not by propellers. All he cares about is money and greed, which is so unfortunate because it costs the life of the second kid after. Also, Brody's responsible too, and you can tell Brody feels guilt for it, and that's why he goes out on the orca. That's why he wants to hunt down the shark, because he feels responsible for what happened to Alex, the kid who got eaten, and the second shark attack before the guy was attacked in the pond. There's the attack of the boy who disappears, Alex.
Yeah. And the shark attacks are just really excellent because Spielberg combined both above surface images of not really seeing what was there, and then you cut that with underwater POV shots of the shark just approaching people's feet. And especially that first sequence of the girl being taken under, amazing. And then the Alex's death sequence was terrific. And then all you see is when he's being brought under by the animal, and then there's just blood spraying everywhere. You're like, oh my God, what is this? What's happening? And he films it from far away, so you can't even you can't really even see exactly what's happening. Just really brilliant cinematography. The POV shots are really excellent. And like we said, this is what Spielberg resorted to because the shark wasn't working. And it works better for the sequence. But in terms of the shark, it's really fascinating how they built the prop sharks, the mechanical sharks. They made 3 of them for certain reasons. So one shark was built for images of the shark moving from left to right, and so the entire left side of this mechanical shark was just uncovered, and you could see the mechanics and stuff. And then they built a shark for the opposite reason, for when the shark moves from right to left, and then the right side of that body was uncovered. So they didn't cover the entire shark props, and so the third shark was actually built for its entire body to be shown, images of the shark's face and when he jumps up on the boat, and then the bottom half of that shark was completely exposed of just mechanics. So they built 3 sharks for these reasons. They couldn't build just one shark because in order to operate the shark, parts of it needed to be exposed for 14 people to operate the shark. So there were a lot of people working on every mechanical shark to get it to work properly. And I thought it was just a really great way to approach how do we do the shark where we can't even, for most of these shots, we can't show the entire body of the shark. Let's make 3.
Yeah, and the scene where the head pops out from under the boat where Brody was throwing the chum, that was not originally scripted, but Steven Spielberg says he got greedy after he saw the preview audience's reaction to the scene where the shark jumps out behind Brody's head and wanted one more scare, so they put that in there. And we all know that "you're going to need a bigger boat" was an improvised line on this movie as well. Yeah. It's just one of the most iconic in film history as well. And also they used real sharks and filmed them real sharks.
It looks great.
As well.
Yeah.
And they effectively did it. Obviously, it looks a little smaller than the Bruce the Shark, the giant one, but they did a good job. I think the anti-shark cage scene was really great use of a real shark being filmed under the water.
My favorite shots of the real shark are when it's like the faraway shots of the shark swimming away.
Yeah.
And then swimming towards us, because then it looks like it's the prop shark they built.
Yeah, again, that's also in the anti-shark cage scene where Hooper is looking out as it swims away.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a really great shark.
There are a couple of shots of one real great white, and the face is different and the teeth are different, but you don't even think about it when you're watching it. I noticed it because I've seen the movie so many times, but I think for audiences, they didn't even conceive that this was a real shark and that was a fake one. I think that he did a terrific job of blending together both the real sharks with those quick cuts and then the Bruce shark.
Anti-shark cage. Now, sharks are so interesting. They've been around for about 450 million years. They predate dinosaurs. And studies have suggested that over 1 million years ago, the mako shark evolved into what we now know as the great white shark, but it has never progressed any further. In essence, it is genetically perfect and ultimate predator. Sharks are generally feared by many, owing to their perceived ruthless primal nature, again, because of movies like this. Now, the shark in this movie, it's huge. 25-foot great white shark. And it's a rogue great white shark, and it has staked hunting grounds and territory off the shores of Amity. And the characters have to either cut off the food supply of the shark for it to go away, which is just close the beaches down, not let people in the water, or find it and kill it. And is this shark overly intelligent? Is it supernatural? I think some people might believe that when they watch this movie. You can believe whatever you want. Personally, I don't think that it's an overly intelligent shark. Maybe slightly more intelligent than the average great white, but I don't think it's a super intelligent shark. It's not like a deep blue sea shark, obviously. I think the holiday roast scene is a perfect example of it just being a shark doing shark behaviors, because this is the scene where the 2 guys, they take one of their wives' holiday roasts, they put it on a big hook, and they throw it off their crappy little dock. Now, this scene, I think, is a great indicator of it just being a shark, nothing supernatural. So they throw the roast in the ocean. The shark is close by, obviously, because this is its hunting grounds. It's drawn by the roast. It grabs the roast. It gets hooked, and then starts swimming away. And then as it swims away with the roast in its mouth, what happens is the dock gets destroyed because they chained the roast to the dock thinking that it would stop the shark. And then one of the guys falls in the water. And then because the guy is splashing erratically, sending signals to the shark that there's something there that it can eat, that's when the shark turns around. So it's not turn around because like, oh, there's a human, I'm gonna eat this human. It's like, oh, there's some crazy erratic behavior going on in the ocean. It might be a bigger meal for me, so I'm gonna go turn around and see what that is. The shark goes after the splashing guy. And then, fortunately, the guy survives. He gets pulled up by his buddy. Swim, guy!
Trust me. Don't look back, but keep swimming.
Keep swimming. He makes it. As soon as his feet get out of the water, the shark turns around and goes away because the splashing has stopped. So, if it was a supernatural shark after human beings, it would have kept going after them, would have destroyed the dock. So, I think it's just a shark doing normal shark behavior. But then, why does it attack the orca boat at the end? Why does it jump on the boat? Because maybe you could say it's getting pissed off. Maybe you could say because the boat's starting to sink, it can sense the splashing of the water because there's so much water in the boat. It's kind of like half in. So then it jumps on top of the boat because remember, before it jumps on the back, the boat is sinking. So I think it starts to sense that there's splashing in the water. So I think personally, the shark's not supernatural. It's not highly intelligent. It's just doing shark behavior.
And also, you could say that the shark is attacking the boat as a predator attacking prey. It's both getting pissed off, but it's because it's so big, I think it can see the boat as another animal that it can take down.
Possibly.
So that's why it's like bashing into the sides of the walls. I don't think the shark knows like, okay, if I bash into the walls, they'll start sinking the ship and then I'll get the guys. I think it's just approaching the boat like it's another animal. And because the shark is so big, that's why it would make sense for it to attack the boat.
But again, I think the second and third act of this movie are the best parts. When the three of them are on the orca, they're hunting the shark. The barrel sequences are so fun and thrilling, getting the harpoon stuck in them. The John Williams score is like the very adventurous.
He's like, get in, I need you in the photo to give it some scale. He's like, go
I'm not
further.
going out there. Go further. And so it's a lot of fun. The shark takes down one barrel. It takes down two barrels.
Can't go down with three, not with three.
Takes down 3 barrels. It's incredible. It's just so fun. It's thrilling to watch. And I think those are some of the funnest moments because even though it's horrific, the shark is eating and killing people, it's still a very fun movie at times and still very funny. There's a lot of great comedic moments with the three of them.
And the fear is brought out really well in terms of Quint because when you see Quint's reactions to the shark multiple times, even he's in shock and you can tell like the look on his face. First, when they see the shark for the first time, he's just stunned by it. But then also, when it takes down 3 barrels, he's just like lost for what to do. And when Quint is shocked, then the audience is like, holy crap, this shark is something that he's never even experienced before. And that's what really brings it to another level where this experienced guy who's killed so many sharks, when he's scared, then it's time to get really scared.
Yeah, and it's got a great climax. It really does. It's the final confrontation. The engine is blown. The ship is sinking. They have no hope of, like, they all think they're going to die. And it's after the anti-shark cage went to shit and Hooper is stuck down somewhere in the scuba gear hiding from the shark, and they pull
that
up.
attack, I think, is the scariest part of the movie.
Yeah, it's really
the
great.
Shark breaking through the cage.
They pull up the anti-shark cage. It's been ripped to shreds. I think one of my favorite parts of the movie, though, is when he takes the cork off the needle, and it's just
satisfying.
The sound is just really satisfying. And then, obviously, the shark comes and it eats Quint, as he foreshadowed of the shark eating you whole, swallowing you whole.
Well, he's just like helplessly falling down the boat, and then there's just the jaws are just like he's just like waiting for his
I like
food.
your impression of the shark. and then obviously quick thinking, Brody throws the air tank in the mouth of the shark after it bursts through the window, and because he probably remembers that Hooper warned him earlier to be careful because they could explode. It's compressed air. And then he just gets up on the crow's nest sort of spot and just shoots it and blows it up.
Smile, you son of a bitch!
It's really great. It's a terrific ending. It's such a great climax. It works so much better than just the sharks succumbing to harpoon injuries. You needed like a great event, a great explosion of an event. It's
you needed a line.
4th of July movie. We needed some fireworks.
You needed a badass line too.
And I love when after the shark gets blown up, it's really beautiful music as the shark blood is everywhere and its fin and its dorsal fin are falling down into the bottom of the ocean, and John Williams does this kind of like this harpy charm music. It sounds like Zelda or something. It's really
magical.
beautiful, these scales, and it's really incredible music because it's like a happy ending in a way, even though Quint got killed.
Yeah, a lot of people got killed, but it's one of my favorite shots of just like the body and the blood slowly pouring down and sinking into the ocean. It's really terrific.
Sounds like Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it does. It does.
like the water temple or something.
And I love them, and I love how the movie just ends with the guys swimming back to shore. You don't need to see them back at town. You don't need to see like a celebration. It's just really terrific for the characters, just to be their partners. They've lost a friend, but they're still alive and they accomplished their mission. And I really love just that final image of their feet kicking, beautiful music, and he's just like, just keep kicking, man.
And then it shows the beach, the shoreline, the safe beach now.
For the credits. Yeah.
And there's so many great moments in the scene. I think when the shark is pulling the bolt, I think that's
that's
such a
terrible
cool scene.
when you see how strong it is.
Because that's when the engine starts to blow for the first time, and it's like this shark is impossibly strong. Also, I really like. It's a funny moment when the first shark gets killed. Obviously, not the shark getting killed. This innocent shark getting killed is funny, but the fact that all these fisher guys, these guys from New York, from Long Island, they went out to catch a shark on their little boats, and I love how they're out there just chumming fish, blood everywhere. They're like a dozen boats,
Light and dynamite.
But when you look at the shark that's being hung to shown for the photos and everything, there's bows stuck inside. So someone's shooting bow and arrow at the shark, which is pretty funny and interesting. Not funny, but it's a joke.
Yeah, how is that funny?
I think sharks are awesome. I love sharks so much.
I know you do. I'm just kidding.
But this movie, it's incredible. It's one of the best movies ever made. It's the original summer blockbuster, the biggest movie that ever was when it first came out until Star Wars took it over, basically. But I mean, it shouldn't be as good as it is. But it somehow, because Steven Spielberg's such a great problem solver and genius, and I think this movie, like Gladiator, it's just the sheer will of the filmmakers, the cast and crew, the production, of believing in themselves and getting through an incredible, difficult half a year of shooting, pulling off something organic and real, and just making just such an event for a film and story. It's so incredible. It never gets old. This is such a timeless movie. You can watch it every year. We pretty much do watch it every year. It's just,
I watched it. Yeah,
it's an all-time great.
It was supposed to. The studio expected this to be a B horror movie, and then it ended up becoming one of the greatest classics ever made.
That's when those are the movies that came out in the summertime, were those B horror movies.
Yeah, and so Spielberg, it's all because of Spielberg. I would say it's because of him. You could say he's the greatest filmmaker of all time. You could say that.
And also, the two of the main cast members weren't cast until about a week and a half before filming. So with just over a week to go, Spielberg and his team faced a problem. They didn't find a Hooper or a Quint. Quint was offered to many people, many actors, but everyone declined. The producers then suggested Robert Shaw, who reportedly hated the book. However, he took the role at the urging of his then wife, Mary George Lucas suggested Richard Dreyfuss after working with him on American Graffiti to Steven Spielberg. When he finally accepted, Spielberg told Dreyfuss not to read the book or the script because they are going to change the entire script anyway, so it's pointless.
Also, according to Steven Spielberg, the prop arm of the dead body of the girl on the beach, it looked too fake in the scene. And so instead they buried a female crew member in the sand with only her arm exposed. So it was a real arm.
It did look like a real arm. And so this is one of those movies that I really, really pray and hope that Universal stays wise and never remakes.
They better not.
Don't ever remake this movie. Don't ever try to reboot Jaws. They'll never be able to capture what the original was. They'll probably go CGI if they try to do it. They'll probably have uninteresting characters, and you'll never be able to capture. So I hope and pray that this is a movie that never, ever, ever gets a reboot or a sequel or a soft reboot, a soft sequel, whatever.
A legacy sequel.
Please don't do it. Please
Don't do it.
Please let us keep the place. Please, Lou.
Please, Lou.
You don't know where I've been, Lou.
You don't know where I've been. But I think they learned with the sequels and how bad they are. Like, there's no way you can actually make a good sequel to this movie.
The one with Michael Caine's so ridiculous. Like, he crashes that plane into the ocean.
Oh, my God.
And the shark comes. It's
ridiculous.
It's pretty nuts.
It's like jumping out of the water.
Like, the shark knows that it's her. It's Brody's wife. It's same actress playing the same character, but the shark just knows it's her.
Yeah, Michael Caine got
Jaws
paid.
the Revenge.
He took the money for that one.
It made money.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got anything else on Jaws, kid?
That's all I got to say about that.
We love this movie so much. It's an all-time great. Thanks for tuning in to our episode on Jaws. Happy 4th of July
Hope
to
you have
everybody
a
in the
safe
United
and healthy
States.
holiday.
Stay safe. Hope you're at like a barbecue having fun today, seeing some fireworks. Have a great time celebrating, and take care.
Goodbye, y'all.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost podcast was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Luke Exelston, Tyler McFly, Darren Singleton, John Agraz, Cody Moen, Calvin Cam, and Lauren Smertz. Thanks so much for tuning in to Raiders of the Lost podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you're new. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Find us on all audio streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Raiders of the Lost podcast. Be sure to check out one of these other videos right here for more content on our favorite films and breaking down all kinds of movie content. Thanks so much.